So, I hope wherever you are in the world, you're keeping well and yeah, looking after yourselves. Today, we're going to be looking at stress and a really simple way to manage stress, and a really simple way to a simple framework that I've taken many years and kind of getting my head around, but in a really simple way. I'm going to deliver it in a simple way to help kind of get you guys on a path of managing stress in a way that is super simple and easy. And so today, my objective is really, or my intention is to take you guys on a journey, and a journey from understanding stress in our life. We've all got stories about stress, and no doubt we all know what stress is, and it is all completely different for every single individual person. Stress for me is different through stress for sorry is different for my partner Katie, which is different to my mates, which is that's the nature of stress. And we're going to get into that later. But today is very much about, you know, opening the doors for understanding of what's going on with stress in our world, how we interpret, how we cope with it, what's going on in the neurobiology aspect of it, how we store stress in the body, how we interpret and hold on to stress and stories in the mind, um, and then moving through and offering a framework on how to get yourselves into, or offer yourselves a set of tools that you can use for one, for preparation for if moments that you are stressed, or for those interventions of, hey, look, I'm going through a bit of a stressful moment here, you know, what can I do and what can I use? So the objective today is a little bit of a journey, and my end objective at the end of it is hopefully you've got a set of tools, or at least two or three different things that that you find helpful on your journey, and you're dealing with this thing called stress. No doubt, just saying the word for some of us you really, do I have to talk about this? But yes, okay. And so I'm going to make it nice and easy today. Nice and simple. Let's not get too sciencey. Obviously, that's the way my brain works. So we're going to put a little bit in there as well. But I want to start with something nice and easy. Nice and simple. Okay. So let's play a little bit of a game first. A little bit of a question. A little bit of a, it's not even a riddle, but I suppose, Katie was like, yeah, no, it sounds like a riddle. But yeah. So what I have, so this is a tool that I've learned from one of my teachers. What I've got here is a bottle of water. Now I've got to be careful that I'm not going to spill water all over myself. But okay, just taking a moment, all right, and let's just think about this. We're talking about stress today, all right, and how we can manage it, and how we can literally, you know, be in a state where it doesn't affect us, all right, as much as it can do, and as much as it has done previously. But here we are, we've got a bottle, and the bottle has got water in it. Now, when I shake this bottle, you'll notice that that water goes everywhere, and it goes on the floor. Now, first things first, it's also on the laptop, but hey, it's not the end of the world, it's just at the edge of it, so it's all good. Right, so, I had some water, I've taken it, I've given it a bit of a shake, and now water is on the floor, right? My question to you, and I'll give you a couple minutes to think about it while I carry on with the general introductions for those that don't know me. Why is that water on the floor? Again, taking a bottle, shaking the bottle, why is that water on the floor? So, have a think about it. Okay, so as you're thinking about that, for those of you who don't know me, it's my absolute pleasure and honor to share these sessions with you. My name's Neil. I've been working in health and wellness for well over 15 years. I've been working in self-development for nearly about 20 years, through my own journeys, but also through working as a coach, a therapist, and an educator as well. I also do consultancy for a variety of brands and festivals and businesses. My background is primarily within stress, pain, and human optimization, and that is from everything from training elite athletes and international athletes through to offering pain management techniques from trauma release exercises to sound therapy to acupuncture to breath coaching to a whole array of different tools and techniques that I've learned over the last, you know, 20 years of work. But a big part of my journey, not only has it been learning as much as I can from amazing people around the world, deepest gratitude and thanks to each and every one of my teachers. Always, for me, it's about honoring those that have passed this knowledge on to me, and hence it's my absolute delight in sharing this knowledge with you. And so, yeah, deepest gratitude to them, but also there's a big chunk of my journey for those of you that know me from London days of the amount of stress, anxiety, and various, symptomatic symptoms that I went through in those stages. I touched on it in the self-compassion talk that we did, well, last week, Wednesday. If you haven't checked that out, that's still on the Future Vibrations page. Just scroll down, that's there. It's an hour talk on how to cultivate and how to develop self-compassion, obviously for yourself, being self-compassion. But a big chunk of my journey was moving into events and hospitality in London. And going through that process, I went through a huge, well, you just call it a huge awakening. And that was in relation to spending, 11 years working in elite performance and sports and whatnot, and, doing well as a university lecturer, etc. And then going to London, changing into the world of hospo, and really kind of not looking after myself and finding myself in hospital not once but a few times. Why? Because I didn't listen to my body and I didn't manage my stress. And between stress and anxiety, burning the candle on both ends, I was very ill, and it took me a while to dig myself out of that. And I'm blessed to say that through tools and techniques, I managed to get myself out of that. Went and geeked out and completed another master's, looking into a lot of this work in, especially pain in the body. And yeah, so my journey within the world of wellness is very much about learning all the sciencey stuff, learning from ancient, ancient lineages from different traditions and cultures around the world, as I spent a lot of time working in the indigenous science side of things, and also from my mistakes and my challenges that I've personally, experienced. And so, as I said, I'm wanted to share this, and I'm always one to talk up about, things like depressive symptoms, about low mood, about stress, about anxiety, and about all the pitfalls that come with that. Because, typically it's just the, that's just the well, the tip of the iceberg, really. So today is very much, as I said, about taking you on a journey. Let's find out what's going on with stress, what's happening in our society with stress. We know that a lot of us are, we're feeling it at the moment because we are either at home, or we're having to work when, it's probably not the most ideal time to work mentally, physically as well. And so it's a really challenging time. As I've mentioned before, frustration is a big side of things as well. So um, let's go back to the game first. So water bottle, shaking the water bottle. Let's do this again. All right, shaking the water bottle. Now the water's on the floor. Why is that water on the floor? For some of you might be thinking, well, obviously you've shaken a bottle with water, so the water's on the floor. Yes. Is it related to stress? You've placed stress on the bottle and now the water's on the floor? Yes. But if we think about it more globally, alright, and by globally I mean like what's actually going on here. And what's actually going on is I've got a bottle that's filled with water. As soon as I add any kind of stress to it, that water comes out and ends up on the floor. The only reason the water's on the floor is because there's water in the bottle in the first place. So, it's as simple as that. So let's just check things again. So let's go through a process of upskilling you guys and offering you tools and techniques for inner resourcing and external resourcing as well, on tools and techniques you can do to look after yourselves. Again, that 7-step process we'll look at later. Now I have the bottle and I can still shake it as much as I want. Is that water coming out? No. Why? Because there's balance within the bottle and there's less water in the bottle, and I'm referring to that water as stress today. And for me it's as simple as that. A brother of mine, Andy Walker, is doing amazing work with a charity called Men Tell, and he likens that kind of that scenario to carrying a heavy bag. And if we've still got that heavy bag we're carrying around the whole time, it's going to weigh us down and it's going to stop us from progressing. And not only that, It's going to cause all sorts of physiological and psychological issues, which we'll go into today. But I like that water thing because when I learned that from the teacher, I was like, yeah, well, obviously, if we're wandering around and we've got that bottle chocker full of all our internal stress, and we've got the external stress coming in as well, no wonder there's people who are really struggling. You know, stress in itself, and we'll get into this in a minute, is by far the well, obviously coronavirus is playing a major factor in it all, but stress at the moment is the biggest killer that we have in the world. All right, and we're going to get into that in a moment. So let me get onto this and share this with you, team. As always, I'm always here, and Facebook and Future Vibrations Elevating Wellbeing, Instagram as well, Future Vibrations Wellbeing. Our website is futurevibrations.co.uk, and yeah, you can reach out to me there or just on my Neil Davis platform. I'm here to help out as much as I can, team. I've spent a lot of time making mistakes, a lot of time growing, a lot of time coaching and helping clients as coach and therapist. I just want to help out. So if you've got any questions, queries, thoughts, or downloads, or whatever, sing out, and I'm here to help. So let's get straight into this. And what I will do is go into here. Let's close that. Watch there. There we go. And we'll just share the screen with you all. Come on, mister. Right. So I'm going to just drop that into there. So again, today is about less stress, more health and happiness. And it sounds, you know, when some people think, oh, health and happiness, well, no, I'm going to have to go through this process. It's really simple, and today we're going to look at 4 different areas. Where are we at the moment, individually and as a society? What's actually going on with our biology, our physiology? You know, what's going on for us? What are some elevating tools? Now, these tools you already know, and this is the beauty of this work. You already know these tools and techniques. I'm just going to offer a bit of a different slant on them, and then we're going to look at the ability to live stress-free, healthy, and happy. So, let's get straight into it. So, where are we? Okay, so don't worry too much about what's going on this page. I'm sure you can look back and watch it. But what I want to basically touch on first of all is that the World Health Organization has listed stress as the health epidemic of the 21st century, and it is rife through everywhere. At the moment, between 80 to 90% of all of our doctor's visits are the result of stress. Right? I'll go into some of the research in a minute, but realistically, stress is everywhere. It's a survival strategy as well. Now, before we go too far into this, I want to acknowledge something, that not all stress is bad. Okay? I've been working as a strength and conditioning coach for years as well, and on that side of things, stress is extremely good, because within, you know, physical development, whether it's speed training, power, whatever, strength, wherever, even if it is just getting stronger in general in the gym, we need stress, because what stress does is, through the stress adaptation curve, blah 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 blah, we stress the body out, it grows back stronger. And so what you have is eustress, okay? And eustress is the positive aspect of stress. Another example of that is if you're about to go into like a meeting and you're kind of getting a little bit like kind of stressed out, just that little bit of stress can help. Okay, it can help with motivation, it can help with focus. If that stress is too much, or if that is prolonged, then we're going to go into that in a moment in terms of chronic stress, and that can have a detrimental factor. But prime example here, here's a dude who's just climbing and he's got to the top of a rock face. Alright, that little bit of stress that he would have gone under to get himself there is positive stress, so that's eustress. Okay, what I'm concentrating on today is very much the stress that leaves us in a state of overwhelm. Okay, now with stress, again, is there's no set definition. Like, there's not one person that's gone, okay, whatever it is, William Webster's, this is stress. Okay, why? Because it's basically stress for each and every one of us is the result of the experiences we've had in life and the trauma that we hold and our perception of what's actually going on. So the closest I've really kind of come to in a nice description of stress is the feelings that people experience when the demands made on them are greater than the ability to cope. Alright? So if you look at Hans Selye's work, or Selye, S-E-L-Y-E, yeah, Selye, either way, his work in the physics side of things in the 1950s is he's taking things from a mechanical perspective and looking at stress as putting load onto an object. All right, and similar to those who know the rehab side of the world, with the question about open and closed kinetic chain strength training, a lot of all that stuff comes from a mechanics background. So physics and mechanics background transferred into the human body. Okay, so with stress, I'm not going to go into this, what is it in terms of, what does it actually look like, because no doubt we all know in our own little way. But with stress, we have external stress, we have internal stress, and then we have the response, and our response typically, that can cause stress as well. So let's just think of some simple stuff. Those that have been working in London that I'm good friends with, and those that are spending a lot of time, doing those 10, 12-hour days behind desks, will know what that external stress is from being placed, being given tasks and tasks that they have to do on certain times and deadlines. Those in the events world that I work with, and even myself putting on and helping with the wellness events, you got deadlines and it can be stressful, but it's how you manage that. There's also the internal aspect as well, and that comes down to things like self-expectation. What expectation are you placing on yourself during this moment? All right, and we touched a little bit on self-compassion last week, and it's owning that moment of, you know what, I'm stressed out, and taking that, or owning that challenging situation, and then basically offering yourself compassion based on the fact that we're all experiencing it, we've all been through it, a bit of mindfulness to give yourself a bit of space, and a bit of kindness. Let's be kind to ourselves, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later. So I'm going to shoot through a lot of this because I'd like to spend more time talking about the tools and techniques to give yourselves, more space from stress. So with stress, all right, it affects us consciously and unconsciously. So consciously, when stress affects us, okay, it typically affects our physical, our psychological, and our behavioral patterns. All right. So if we look at the physical aspect, the outcome of that can be things like depression, sadness, anxiety, irritability, lower sex drive. Psychologically, you've got things like, well, irritability falls in psychology aspect as well. You've got lack of memory and concentration, behavioral, compulsive behaviors. I'm sure, most people would have thrown their hands up and go, oh, just whatever, okay, just I give up, or let's just get it done. Those behavioral aspects. What about things like the physical aspects of gaining weight, losing weight, not eating, overeating, drinking more, not drinking, enough water, or obviously alcohol as well. Fatigue is a big one. Fatigue. I struggled with fatigue. That was a big one for me. But again, stress affects us on so many different levels. There's the emotional level as well, where our emotions start to play out because we're unable to manage the input of the stress, and it affects us deeply. So just going to shoot through that at the moment, and let's have a look at just some of the stresses that we've got going on. So we've got adrenal stresses. So typically when stress affects us, and I'll go into the physiology and all that stuff in a minute, but it affects our adrenal glands, and so you've got things like fear, financial pressure, emotional stress, death. We are in quite possibly the biggest stressful moment we've globally been in ever, as far as I'm aware. I can't remember any last time we had a pandemic where everybody had to stay at home, and the stresses that placed on us as individuals, as families, as communities as well. So we've also got things like even eating gut irritating foods. We're going to get into the nutritional aspect in a bit. Over prescription of caffeine, hands up, drinking way too much coffee. Well, bless now, I haven't had a coffee in a few months. But yeah, I went through a phase of drinking, sort of 5, 6 proper pools of coffee, as I like to call them, a day. That's stressing out the adrenals. Eating nutrient lacking foods, so over processed foods, that can have a different stress on the body as well. Lack of relaxation, we're going to get into that. Lack of sleep, we're going to get into that as well. All these adrenal stresses that stress our adrenal glands, but also stress our whole body and our whole system as a whole. Now, when these carry on, Okay, now this is where things start to get serious. Okay, we have little acute bouts of stress, no problems, our body can bounce back from that. But when those bouts of stress continue and are prolonged, typically, well, there's no set time really, but they become chronic. And by chronic, that means that they're prolonged over, well, they're carrying on over a prolonged period of time. Now, what happens? Heart disease, and these are all scientifically research proven. Okay, so we have diseases such as heart disease. Just need a bit of water there. Asthma, obesity, diabetes, which ties into obesity as well, depression and anxiety. All right, headaches, tension headaches, migraines. Stress has been shown to affect Alzheimer's as well, and also things like IBS. So stress over a prolonged period of time has some really substantial effects on the human body and on us. So what does the research actually say? What's actually going on? Okay, now some of this, when I looked into it, is startling. And let's have a look. So, no, let's get out of that one. Let's go into this one here. Okay, so this is a mental health survey, or that was done by the Mental Health Foundation. And this was from 2018. No doubt it's expanded. But in the UK, 3/4 of all adults have felt overwhelmed or unable to cope with stress in a year. Now, I'm sure that resonates with a lot of us, but that's a hell of a lot of people. 74% of the of people surveyed. So it's really, if we expand that out and extrapolate that, well, basically we've got 74% of the population have felt overwhelmed by stress. Yes, I have. It's common, all right. Of that 74%, this is which I find absolutely fascinating. 83% of 18 to 24-year-olds find, have experienced this, whereas those that are over 55, that drops down to 65%. Okay. Now, for me, that's a worry, because what that's showing is the younger generation coming through are exposed to more stress than any other generation before. Okay. Not only that, is out of those people feeling stressed, 32% of 3/4 of our population have experienced suicidal feelings as a result of stress. It's a huge epidemic. All right. Not only have we got 32% having suicidal thoughts, we've got 46% who are changing their behaviors and moving their behaviors into patterns that are detrimental to their health. So we've got 46% that are eating too much. All right. 29%, so 30% of that population is drinking too much. All right, and 16% have started smoking or increased their smoking as well. So again, and by all means, like, I'll put my hand up. I used to smoke and used to drink, and it's part and parcel. Especially when I was in London, the amount of stress that increased. And I'm blessed now that over the last 3 years I haven't touched either. So, maybe what, 2 or 3 times a year, if that. But that's just my journey. So that's how things are. But I completely understand and know exactly where people are at, and especially in these times, I know friends of mine who've gone and found out, right, we're going to be in lockdown, and have all gone right on a bender for a couple of weeks, and just celebrated and gone, well, I don't have to do anything, so I'm just going to party. It catches up, but let's not go into that. So back into these stats here. 51% of adults who felt stress reported feeling depressed, and 61% report feeling anxious as well. Obviously, anxiety is one of those core components of depressive symptoms. I still don't believe in depression itself. That's a whole other story as well. It's just a bunch of symptoms that we like to label. And 37% of them feel lonely. Now, for me, disconnection and loneliness are some of the biggest issues that we have in our society, which is bonkers, because we're most connected. We are the most connected community or connected population ever, or connected civilization, I would say, that we know of. But we're connected in a way that I don't feel is as authentic and as true as possible, which I really hope through this coronavirus side of things we are reaching out. And we're going to talk a bit more about connection and that in a bit. But I really want to highlight the last point there, is that 80% of our doctor's visits are the result of stress. So 80 to 90%, depending on what research you read. If anybody thinks about going to the doctors, I can guarantee that most of the reasons they've gone are for that. For clients I've seen in the clinic, I would say that amount is bang on. There are very few clients I see that are based on physical trauma, i.e. like a rugby injury, being hit by a car, all that, not so positive stuff. Most have come in because of being sat at a desk for too long, stressing out themselves and stressing out their body, holding on to those thought patterns, holding stress within the tissues. We'll talk about that in a bit. Or literally, going through stressful periods in life and not processing it, and then obviously that getting lodged in the body. So, and we know through the mind-body link, even if you're excited about something, that mental emotion of excitement stimulates butterflies. Stress typically shoulders and neck, and I'll be looking at shoulder and neck as a therapy tomorrow. So if you guys are interested, tune in tomorrow. I'm going to do a full therapy session on how to treat yourself for head and shoulder. Head and neck pain as well. Right, so let's crack on. Lots to go through. Okay, so how do we cope with stress? Now, this is as simple as it is. Okay, our coping of stress is based on our perception of it. It's based on our internal resources and our external resources. What internal resources do we have to deal with stress? What external resources do we have and we're able to tap into? And what is our perception of that stress? Again, that perception comes down to our experiences in life, all right? What we've been taught, what we've taken on board, our traumas as well, all right? That gives us the idea of what we're perceiving, all right? Plus our internal resources and external resources gives us our ability to cope. If we don't have internal resources or external resources, the balance is going to be out. We're not going to be able to cope. And so today my objective is to offer you guys, and my intention again is to offer you internal and external resources so you can alter your perception and cope better. Okay. So with that, I just want to chat about well-being for a minute. Okay, because typically what we are doing as a global, and this is my interpretation and what I've seen, and especially what I've seen in London. And for those in London who've been in the wellness world for the last 10 years or so will know exactly what I'm talking about. And that is, well-being has expanded exponentially. It is huge. There's not a single place that's not offering yoga, sound journeys, meditation, people talking about this type of stuff. It is everywhere. And I firmly believe the reason it's everywhere is because of the epidemic of stress within our society. The amount of stress we're placing on individuals and on ourselves has exponentially just shot through the roof. And so in order for us to deal with it, what we've done is we've gone, hey, let's put a patch on it with all of this well-being. Okay? And that's the way we deal with it. Okay? Now, this is taking things from a well-being aspect of using well-being to manage stress. Now, I'm happy to discuss with anybody, about that in terms of whether you believe it or not. This is just my belief. I would love to say that well-being is all about fun, and that's what it should be about. Okay, and as I said before, there's a lot of stuff we're gonna tap into, but for me, well-being should always be fun, and it should be something that you want to do. But fundamentally, strip it back. Go and sit with yourself and have a cup of tea and just check in with yourself, and what you'll most likely find, and again I see this with clients and it's with myself as well, is the reason I'm carrying on with a lot of well-being work is because it's allowing me to be in balance, right? And allowing this doing with well-being, well, typically with well-being, there's the major aspect of it all is what we call homeostasis. Homeostasis is that internal balance and regulation within our body. That's what our body is trying to do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all of the time. And what are we regulating? We're regulating our blood pressure, regulating our heart rate, we're regulating our hormones, we're regulating our mental clarity, and we're regulating our energy. That's what okay, so we have a cup of coffee. Coffee is our blood glucose, because obviously it's got caffeine. So off we go, cascade of hormones, alright? And the body then takes time to balance that, to bring us back into normal. So you'll go through a process, if you haven't drank coffee for a while, of maybe the jitters, alright? And then your body will balance that and be able to process that caffeine and then bring us back into alignment, alright? We do an exercise that stresses us out. The body works out, okay, let's breathe in a different, change our breathing. Let's balance that back. Heart rate changes. We come back to homeostasis. So it's about balancing, okay? Not only is our body designed to balance, our body is designed to heal, okay? You look at cutting yourself, you look at breaking a bone, you look at getting ill, going through a stressful moment. Our body is naturally designed to heal. That's what it does. Okay. You look at going out on a night, you go out partying, you go out and drinking, you feel like crap for some people, not at all. For other people, for a couple of days. But your body is then readjusting everything to come back to a state of homeostasis and back to a state of balance. And this is what our body does. It's phenomenal. It's such an amazing technology. Okay. And for me, there's three fundamental pillars of well-being, and the three fundamental pillars of well-being is physical efficiency. How efficient is my body at regulating energy? How efficient is it at processing and withdrawing energy from food? How efficient is my brain operating? How efficient is my liver operating? How efficient am I at movement, at performing certain exercises? So your physical efficiency is one. Mental clarity is another one, which is a big one. How clear are my thoughts? Am I able to deal with the psychological stress of things? Am I getting mental fog? Am I able to apply myself psychologically or mentally in terms of what I would like to do? And the third fundamental pillar for me is happiness, and that's being happy within our lives and being happy with what we're actually, what we're doing on a day-to-day thing. Because let's be honest, if we're not happy, then why the hell are we doing things? Again, hands up, went through a process, wasn't happy, ended up going all the way down the rabbit hole until I ended up extremely ill, which is quite, I find it, and I can laugh because it's for me, it's my story, but especially after 10 years of working with athletes and telling athletes, or not telling athletes, but offering athletes tools to deal with things like stress and whatnot. Anyway, so let's move things on, team, and let's have a look. So we know where we're in a pretty crazy place at the moment, and so with that, let's have a look at what's actually going on physiologically. Okay, so right, so let's have a quick squiz here. So I'm just going to check something quickly. Right, brilliant. Right, loads to get through. So what is the biology of stress? What's actually going on physically? So let's look at the embodiment aspect of things. How are we embodying things? So for those of you that caught the self-compassion side of things last week, you'll know what this curve's about. It's the way I look at the body, and I understand things from an aspect of neuroception. And neuroception is a term that's been coined by Stephen Porges, and that is basically saying that our body is constantly taking on information. That information is processed through one of our primary nerves, our primary cranial nerves, called our vagus nerve, alright, which is our 10th cranial nerve. Our body processes that, which taps into the autonomic nervous system. Through the autonomic nervous system, we then have our different responses. Alright, what we're talking about today is the sympathetic response, and the sympathetic response is the fight or flight response. That's when we're in a state of fear, panic, anxiety, irritation, frustration. Our blood pressure increases, our heart rate increases, adrenaline gets pumped into the system, norepinephrine gets pumped into the system as well to get ourselves ready for fight or flight. Okay, I'm sure a lot of you would know this anyway, so it's just skimming through this. Alright, and once we go into that state of fight or flight, the next stage is the release of cortisol. Alright, so cortisol is known as the stress hormone, and what happens is that basically enters our system. It takes at least 15 minutes for that to be processed, and so we're in a state of fight or flight. If you take it back to the caveman days, you're ready to literally run away from a saber-toothed tiger, if you will. Alright, but what we are typically going through, talking about everything we've just talked about, is our cortisol levels are increasing, and from that state of cortisol within the system, we're maintaining that state of alert and maintaining that sympathetic state. We're in fight or flight for prolonged periods of time. Okay. So if we go from that acute state, yes, the body can deal with that, but if we maintain that form of stress, we go into a chronic response, and that chronic response through our general adaptation syndrome, alright, we stress ourselves out and we maintain that stress, we get to a state of exhaustion, and that is when we go through a state where our body and mind can typically give in and give up. If you're lying on the couch now and you're like, I give up, like I just want this coronavirus to be over as well, that's when we're actually getting towards a stage of, it's mixed between sympathetic and parasympathetic, because it's not an on or off, it's a journey through the two. But what we're doing is we're literally just being like in that exhausted state. I've been stressed out for too long about what's going on in this whole situation. I'm out. I'm giving up. So just to carry on through this quickly. Now, when we're going through this process, if we go back to our water bottle, all right, this is when we start filling up the water bottle. Okay, we go through these stressful states, and if we keep going, if we go through an acute state, we fill it up, we release it through our internal and external resources we developed. If we don't have those internal and external resources, that chronic response continues. Okay, so what effects does this have? Okay, so on the brain, I've touched on some of this before, but we've got difficulty concentrating, we've got anxiety, we have the likelihood of depression, we've got irritability, mind fog. Alright, I'm sure this sounds familiar to some. Cardiovascular wise, we have high cholesterol, low blood pressure as well, increased likelihood of heart attacks, joints and muscles, increased inflammation. The number of clients I've seen that have come in just for stress within their tissue, it's just astronomical. Okay. And again, I put my hand up as well. When I get through stressful times, one of the first things I do is body work. Like, get into the body first, alright? The immune system, we have issues with the immune system. It's really important in these times that we assist our immune system as much as possible. Hair, I've got long locks these days. I noticed when we had this lockdown, it began, I had a lot more hair molting than usual. That was one of my symptoms, okay? You can have delayed tissue repair for those people who typically will get a bruise and it takes ages to shift. That can be a result of stress within the system and our body's not repairing itself quick enough. We're not getting back to homeostasis and we're not able to repair. Okay, we've got issues with guts from gut reabsorption, gut nutrient absorption, bloating, IBS, etc. And we've also got things like lowered sex drive, decreased hormone production, and increase in things like PMS symptoms as well. Now, I firmly believe we can balance all this with what I call the Wholesome 7, which is a framework that I've spent, years developing without knowing it. And it is so easy and so simple that I'm really excited to share it with you, because I really feel that it'll help. Okay? For some reason I wrote that twice there, but alas, that doesn't matter. Let's crack on. So, okay, elevating tools. Here's me misreading things. So, I hope you guys are all still with me. I know I'm kind of shooting through stuff, but it's because I want to spend more time here. Right, so, the Wholesome 7, alright? So, the Wholesome 7, for me, is 7 simple steps to living a happier and healthier life. Alright, it's about resourcing yourself. And again, these aren't, you're not reinventing the wheel here. These are just simple tools and techniques that I've identified that work and resonate best with my clients. Okay, and the Wholesome 7, all right, and I love that whole play on words with the Wholesome 7 being obviously the fact that we're all we're better than the sum of all our parts. But yeah, so let's just carry into it. So we're going to go into it. The first one is sleep. Alright, wow. The most important thing we can do is sleep. Alright, sleeping is our healing time. So I'll get into that in a second. We're going to go into each of these. The next thing is breathing. Optimizing our breathing and breathing the best we can. Moving. Alright, keeping our body moving, especially in these times. Thinking, nourishing the body, relaxing, and connection. Alright, so if we sleep well, we breathe well, we move well, we think well, we nourish ourselves well, we relax well, and we connect with others and connect with ourselves, that is scientifically shown through different techniques to lower the likelihood of all the diseases we were talking about before, to increase our happiness, and to help us live a more balanced life. Alright, and it's as simple as that. And so the reason I keep in this nice simple form is because there are so many tools and techniques out there that people are offering. For me, once I offered these 7 steps or 7 techniques to clients, They can pick and choose whichever they like, and so today I'm going to offer you a few in each. So I'm just going to check on how we're going for time. Right, so let's get into it. So sleep. Okay, so for me, sleep, as I said, it's the time we heal. Alright, so the more time we spend sleeping, and in relation to the specific time we need to sleep, so evenings obviously, ideally 8 to 10 hours, you know, that's the time that we heal. Okay, so for me, before you go to sleep, digital detox. So an hour before you go to sleep, try and put your phone away. If possible, when you're sleeping, put your phone in a different room, buy an analog alarm and use that. Okay, it stops you not only just checking your phone at night time, it stops that whole thing of get up in the morning and the first thing you do is you jump on your phone. Straight away you get that stress response kicking off. Okay, try and develop a routine if you can, and by routine, nice and simple, for me is an hour before you go to bed. Alright, pop your phone aside. Alright, dim the lights, try and go to bed at the same time every evening. But if you can't go to bed at the same time every evening, maybe you're getting stuck into a Netflix program, try and get up early in the morning at the same time, or whichever time you get up in the morning, but try and keep that similar if you can. That's the key really, is keeping that nice and simple. Okay, if you are sleeping and you can't sleep properly, alright, or you go to sleep and you get up, or again you're marinating in bed, as I like to call it, get up and start again. Alright, this is one of the key things that I learned from the guy James, who I learned from. He's called the Sleep Geek. Check him out. He's really, really awesome. Okay, if you cannot get to sleep, get up and start your process again. Okay, because that marinating in bed, I'm sure we all know about it. Watching the ceiling, watching the paint dry, that really kind of, it's, it takes longer to get to sleep. Alright, so again, try and digital detox. Try and set a sleep routine, going to bed, but obviously the main one is getting up at the same time. And if you can't sleep, get up and start again. Right. So we're going to go into the breath. Now, the work I do as a breath coach, okay, I'm about the simple stuff. Alright, there's a lot of amazing work going on at the moment with therapists and breath coaches, breath workers offering shamanic breathing, transformational breathing, holotropic breath work, the whole lot. It's beautiful, amazing work. For me, the aspect of breath work is similar to the work I've been doing with athletes. It's about controlling the breath and offering a really simple, grounded technique to optimize the function of the diaphragm and enabling us to fill each three of our lobes, the upper, middle, and lower, effectively. Alright? Then we can go into the cool stuff and deal with the trauma side of it, and we go do breath work. But for me, let's get the foundation right. So, first things first, recruiting our diaphragm. Our diaphragm sits at the it's the top of our core, if you will, and it sits below our ribs. When our diaphragm contracts, air enters the lungs, it fills up the first three lobes. The easiest way to do this is breathe through the nose. Okay, as soon as we breathe through the nose, it activates the diaphragm. If you struggle to breathe through the nose and you're unable to do that, then try belly breathing, and by that I mean breathing right the way into the belly, expanding the belly as you breathe in, and then breathing out. So activate that diaphragm as much as you can through breathing through the nose. Okay, try and consciously breathe. And when I say consciously breathe, all it is it's another form of breath work that we use called breath awareness. So when we're breathing, when we're breathing, regulate our breaths and be aware of them by long and slow breaths. Okay, we breathe in for 6 seconds and out for 6 seconds. Nice and slow. This is a fantastic tool as well to use when you find yourself stressed out. You can just lower that stress response, lower that sympathetic response by slowing the breath down, in and out. The work that the HeartMath team do is amazing work, and they show that through coherent breathing, okay, simple rhythmic breaths, it basically allows the heart to come into sync with the breath, which also enables the brainwaves to set in sync as well, because they're all in sync the whole time. Okay, last time I checked, if you hyperventilate, you can't slow your heart down. So just by maintaining that long, slow, controlled breath And all we have to do is just focus on the feeling of the air going in the nose and the air coming out of the nose. Okay. Extended exhales is a fantastic way to tap into the vagal nerve, like I was mentioning before. And the way this works is very nice and simply. You breathe in for 4 seconds, so in, 2, 3, 4, and then you exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and in for 4, 3, 2, 1, out for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, absolutely brilliant tool. If you can't sleep, that's another one you can try as well, instead of the old trick of counting sheep, if you even try that. But that's a really, really good way to really settle your nervous system. So breathing, and it's a tool that you can use any day. It's something that you can regulate any time of the day. Just, as I said, breathe through your nose, be aware of your breath, try and make it long and slow, 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out if you can. Otherwise, you know, with your intention and with your consciousness and your will, change it to 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out. Right. The next one is move. Why have I put moving before thinking? Because what we know from research is that trauma lodges itself in the body. I see that on a day-to-day basis with clients when, well, obviously not now, but with clients, they'll come in with pain, and that's because what's gone on in the mind has lodged itself in the body, and they're holding on to that in the form of tension. Again, going to that analogy of stress, where do we typically feel it? Shoulders and neck. Why? Because we do this, or we're hunched over the computer like that. Okay, so moving the body really helps us process emotions. It helps us, there's so many different, I could go on for days about the benefits of movement. But for me, it comes down to some really simple tools and techniques. One, try and build movement into your routine. Alright, it's much easier to build movement into your routine by things like, if you've got stairs, why not every morning walk down the stairs, walk back up, walk back down. So, or if you're going for a walk, all right, why not speed that walk up and then slow it down? If you're going out for a run, obviously, then brilliant, it's in your routine already. But try and build some form of exercise into your routine. For me, a big one is stretching. All right, and it doesn't matter what type of stretching you do, whether you go down the lines of yoga or Pilates, or just general static stretching, or the old school, the old school static stretches that you learned from years ago. Just try and stretch the tissue, all right, which helps increase your range of movements and your mobility at joints as well. Okay, it's fantastic for helping with shunting of toxins from your muscles. It really is an amazing and important practice. Okay. If you can do 20 minutes of exercise a day or movement a day, brilliant. Again, there are so many amazing, coaches, therapists, teachers and instructors online at the moment, all doing free sessions and offering what they can. Give something a try. There's no better time to try these tools and techniques because you're in the comfort of your own home. Nobody can see what you're up to. So I implore you, give it a go. With movement, find your fun. Okay. For the team back in New Zealand, they know, and still we've got a badminton set here. All right, it is such an awesome game for us. That was one of the big things of how to keep moving. When if we're not training, etc. It's just fun, and it's such a simple game to play. So find your fun. If you can find some fun and build it into your routine, we try and spend a bit of time out today. Actually, as I speak now, the girls are outside playing a bit of frisbee. Playing a bit of badminton, as I like to call it. But again, just keeping that body moving. So, let's see where we're at. Right, so, thinking. Okay, so this is a whole big set of this is a big world of psychotherapies, of motivation, of focus, it's a huge area. Okay, so I'm not going to get my therapist hat on and talk about the tools that I use, IFS and CRM. Thinking well is very, very easy. All right, by practicing gratitude. All right, we talked about gratitude in the self-compassion talk last week. All right, that's the practice of bringing your awareness to being grateful for an experience. All right, just getting up in the morning and thinking of 3 things that you're grateful for over the last 24 hours. It could be an amazing coffee you've had, could be an amazing conversation that you had that felt great. It's embodying that grateful feeling, all right? And you can take that to a next step of re-envisioning that, bringing that to the mind. As you bring that to the mind space, what did it feel like? What did it look like? What could I smell? What could I hear in that moment? Really embodying gratitude. The practice of mindfulness, being aware of what's happening in the present moment, is such an amazing tool. Again, so much of that work is online everywhere. There's amazing people doing that work. For me, the easiest way to get into mindfulness was through mindful walking, and just from walking in the park, I was able to tune into the sensations, the sounds of my feet as I had, heel strike onto the floor, toe off as I was walking, those sounds, what was going on there, and expanding that then into what sounds are around me, what birds are around me, etc. What that does is brings you into the present moment. And that's what we really want to try and do as much of, is spend more time in the present moment, because when we're not in the present moment, we are either in the future or in the past, and typically when we're in those states, that's when we're calling in stress, all right? Because we're thinking about what's going to come, so we're trying to prepare for something, and then we're dwelling in something in the past. Okay, so that's where, for me, the two big funnels of stress are. If we can spend more time in the present, and again, I'm still learning this as well, that's where the gold really is. Okay. Another tool within the thinking world, and this is something that has been an absolute revelation for me, is and I learned this from a quote from Nelson Mandela, is, every opportunity is an opportunity to learn. All right. Whatever goes on, we can just learn and step forward. So I see every opportunity that goes on as an opportunity to learn. Hands up, it is not always the easiest when things go awry, right? But it's a great way to look at things. Okay. So if something doesn't pan out the way you expected it to, and coming back to being mindful, if we're looking at something in the future, we're placing an expectation on it. All right. If we have that expectation, again, that can begin the process of the stress response by us expecting something to occur, and then when it doesn't. So again, using every opportunity as an opportunity to learn. Okay, so 3 more. So nourishment, again, it's a huge world when it comes to nourishment. Okay, nutrition, it's, I deeply love nutrition. There's so much information out there about it. For me, keep it simple. Try and have at least 8 cups of water a day. For me, I literally, before I get out of bed, I have a pint of water every morning. That's just a technique I use, and I'll make sure that I'm topping up with water all the time. We are mostly water, between 45 and 85%, depending on what part of the body. And if we're mostly water, then what's the thing that's going to get us back to homeostasis quickest? Water. Okay, it's not a juice, because we've got to pull the sugars out to get to the water, etc. It's water. So maintaining as much water as we physically can is ideal. Easiest way to check this is check the color of your urine. If it's straw colored, brilliant. If it's yellow, we need more, because what's happening is there's a misbalance between the salts in our body and the amount of water. If it's completely clear, then we've diluted our system too much. Okay, so then just ease off the water as well. Single ingredient foods, alright, that is the easiest way to navigate the processed foods. Well, these next 2 are about the processed foods world, but single ingredient foods, if you can eat foods that are of one ingredient, typically you're eating natural food, alright, an apple, carrots, potatoes. The simple nutritious stuff is just a single ingredient. It is really, really difficult these days with people prolonging the shelf life of certain things, but try and eat as many single ingredient foods as possible. This brings me to our next one, and again, this for me was an absolute game changer when I got my head around it, is if you can't understand what's on the label, then don't eat it. It's as simple as that. You look at things now and they're like xanthan gum, triphosphate this, mono MSG this, da 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 da. What I say to clients is, if you can't understand what those things are what those ingredients are in what you're about to eat or drink, then don't have it. It's as simple as that. Okay. Again, the nutrition world is massive. I'm going to be going into that in future sessions. But for the moment, those are the 3 tips that I have. Drink at least 8 cups of water a day. Try and eat some more single ingredient foods, and if you don't understand the label, then just don't eat it or drink it. Okay, so relaxation. Right. Who has built in some time to relax a day, every day? You know, I try and every morning get up and I have a cup of tea, and it's my time to be. I have a cup of tea, and literally I sit down and I just check in with myself and just chill out. That's my time. I really enjoy it. I'm a morning person, so you know that's what that's where I try and spend my time, with just hanging out with myself, and again using mindfulness in not getting, well, doing my best, because it's challenging, to not get caught up in what's going to play out today. Okay, music is a big one for me, team. We all, those that know me, you'll know how important music is. The beauty of music is you can use it to change your state whenever you want. Just think about putting on high energy music before you run. Think about putting on relaxing music to allow yourselves just to calm down and settle. Music is a great way to relax. Okay. You've got resting the psoas and resting the brain. Now, just because of time, I'm not going to go into this, but I will, I promise, on another video, I will look at resting the psoas. Okay, the best way to rest the psoas, I'll just explain to you now, is lie on your back. Put your feet flat on the floor as if you're going to do a press up. Okay. Make sure that that floor is a hard floor, and make sure that your hips and your knees are directly in line. And that's it. Do nothing. So, hard floor, lying on your back, feet into sit-up position, align your hips and your knees, and stay there for a minimum of 10 minutes. Okay, that's the only position that the psoas muscle itself is able to rest. And on another, well, when we get deeper into some of this work with the psoas, I'll explain a lot more. But the psoas has been shown to not only be directly linked with our adrenal glands, but it's also linked to our limbic system. And when we sleep, we dump our emotions that we can't process into our limbic system, and from that basically downloads and drops stress straight into the body, which in turn can change the position of the pelvis, and it's responsible for so much more. So we'll get into that at a later stage. Practice self-compassion. So again, we did a whole hour on that last week, so if you're interested in that, please refer to the last one, the last talk I did. And then slow down. Okay, now I'm going at a relatively fast pace today, just because I'm trying to get as much into this hour or hour and 10 minutes, looks like now, as possible. All right, but slow down. Okay, we don't need to do things at 1,000,000 miles an hour. All right, a conversation I was mentioning last week was who's told us that we have to do things at certain times, apart from, if you've got some work or whatever. Try and be kind and slow things down as much as possible, so you can do things in your own time, all right, and enabling you to relax through them instead of sitting in this jittery, fight or flight state. So slowing your work down, if possible. Again, for some people it's not possible, but slowing things down. Okay, I'm a big fan of law of least resistance and doing things as easily as possible. Again, for me, slowing down is a big asset to be able to tap into. Okay, last couple, team, and for me this is a huge one, the 7th wholesome 7. And to be honest with you, this one should probably be at the beginning. In fact, there's no set 1 to 7, it's just how it's kind of panned out. But connection, alright? Again, going back to taking the time and relaxing for you, connecting with yourself in the morning, or whenever. Taking that moment to connect. Excuse me. So, one, if you're going to connect with nature. We know that spending time in nature, the Japanese call it forest bathing, which is Shinrin-yoku, and that's spending time in nature, and that naturally will lower our stress response and take us into a parasympathetic state. Right? Even watching, if we can't get out as much as possible. I know that scientifically it's been shown just watching nature on TV or having it in the background does help. It sounds simple, but it does help. So try and connect with nature if possible. If you're able to, whip off your shoes as well and stand barefoot on the ground. Okay. Not only that, is with the connection with the community. We are who we are because of our community. It's as simple as that. It's, based on how we've been brought up as kids, that's who we are. So we are who we are because of our community, and because of that, you know, tap back into the community. A lot of people, I've traveled all over the world, lived all over, and I'll be honest, like I have lost contact with a lot of people, but I've spent in this time in coronavirus connecting with is quite a few, well, as many as I physically can, people, to connect back into my community because my community is the one that has shaped me. All right. This leads on to reaching out with family and friends as well. Reach out to your family and friends where possible, especially in moments of stress. Okay, and this brings me on to the last point, and call it the hippie side of me or whatever, but we are all one. How can we not all be one if we are a human species? We are all from the same. If you want to even get all sciencey and quantum physicsy, we're from the exact same amoeba, etc. We've had to come from somewhere, right? Not only that, is we're part of this whole civilization. Look at us all now going through coronavirus. We're doing it globally, which I think is one of the coolest things ever. And it's not a hey look at them, hey look at them. It's a hey, we're all in this together. And understanding that we are all one helps us also tap into the fact that we are all connected. Yes, we have different sub communities, but this whole global community is also one. And it also taps into that self-compassion side of things of, if you're dealing with stress and you're really struggling with it, just remember there's people all over the world who are going through this process as well. Reach out to and connect with those people in your community that you feel safe and comfortable with. So, Wholesome 7 again. Sleep well, breathe well, move well, think well, nourish well, relax well, connect well. The coolest thing is now is I'm going to do workshops, sessions like this on each of those 7 to really explore them and go into depth. Alright, so that'll be coming up in the following weeks. And last little slide here we've got is live stress-free, healthy and happy. Alright. A quote that I really enjoy, which I've kind of adapted a bit, is just be real. You can't help yourself unless you acknowledge where you're at. Okay. And clients that work with me, they'll know the first thing that I talk about is being honest. Be honest with where you're at. Be honest with where you're at in your environment. Be honest with where you're at internally as well. You can't help others unless you help yourself first. Okay. So acknowledge where you're at. Again, I went through went through everything, and I had to stick my hand up, and obviously ended up in a terrible place, and I ended up in hospital. And why was that? Because I couldn't own up to where I was at. So I just burnt myself out completely till I was in a state that is not, it's less than ideal. So yeah, walked it, got the t-shirt, wrote the book, got the whole lot. I haven't wrote the book yet, one day, but yeah. 2, be kind. Be kind to yourself. As I said last week, self-compassion, it is so important to be kind. Alright? So take that time to relax, to find your time, whether it's in nature, whether it's listening to music. Be kind to yourself, right? Especially in these times. If you lie and you watch Netflix all day, watch 25 episodes of something, brilliant. That's what you needed at the time. So be kind. And the last little bit is take small steps. Okay? Just small steps is all it takes. There's no rush in anything. As far as I'm aware, there's nobody challenging and pushing me to do anything. I'm doing everything in my own time because that's what feels comfortable. So, if possible, try and take small steps, team. Try and make things nice and easy. So, I'm wary of the time. So, I'm going to tidy things up there. But again, I'm going to be going into the Wholesome 7 in the next few weeks, and we're going to expand on those a bit more. And so let's go back to this one here. So again, gone a little bit over, about 5 minutes over. There's a lot of information there to digest, and again, it's my pleasure to share this info. And the reason it's so important to me, and stress has been so amazing, is because it's affected me in such a humbling way. And I really feel that if we can better manage our own stress, we can live healthier and we can be more happy. And it's as simple as that. And so I want to say deepest gratitude and thanks to each and every one of you who've tuned in today. If you've come and gone and watched this back, brilliant. Please let me know in the comments below. If you've got any questions or queries or thoughts, please let me know as well. I'm here to help out where I can. You know, it's as I said, it's a blessing to share this, and for me, thank you so much for your time, because for me, time is the most precious commodity that we have. So to each and every one of you, thank you so much. You know where I am, either at Future Vibrations Elevating Wellbeing on Facebook, Future Vibrations Wellbeing on Instagram,